So you want to become a data analyst. Maybe you've just graduated university and now you're learning data analytics from scratch. Or maybe you already have a full-time job and you're looking to make the career transition into analytics. Either way, there's always one thing that every data science and data analytics interview will test you on, and that is SQL or SQL. In this video, I will be giving you a complete roadmap on learning SQL. This video has been divided into 3 sections, so feel free to skip to any part that you'd like. In the first section, we'll be talking about what is SQL and why you should learn it. In the second section, we'll talk about how to learn SQL. What are the core concepts that you need to know, and what are the best courses out there for learning SQL? In the third section, we will talk about how to ace SQL interviews. This is the part that so many people get wrong. I have failed multiple SQL interviews in the past, so stick around till the end to make sure that this doesn't happen to you. Okay, let's get into it. Before we get started, I just want to say, this is hard. Starting a career in data analytics is not easy. There are so many things you need to know besides just SQL. Things like statistics, data visualization, dashboarding, data communication. This was me when I was trying to learn all of these skills at once. I simply didn't know where to start. And that is where CourseCareers comes in. CourseCareers has this amazing data analytics skill track that teaches you everything you need to know to become a data analyst in 2024. Okay, I know that there are many platforms out there offering courses in data analytics and data science. But here's what I really like about CourseCareers. 1. The course is taught by someone with a lot of industry experience. It is taught by a business analytics manager at Cigna with over 9 years of work experience. In comparison, my computer science degree was taught by PhDs with 0 work experience, and they had no idea how to prepare us for the industry. 2. CourseCareers provides you with unlimited mentorship from people who actually work in the industry. And 3, they have a network of employers who are willing to interview and hire top graduates from their program, which is a great way to get your foot in the door. So if you're ready, you can sign up for CourseCareers using the link in my description. They also have a free introductory course teaching you how to break into the field of data analytics. So if you're not ready to pay for the full course just yet, you can simply sign up for free instead. Firstly, what is SQL and why should you learn it? Now, most companies store their data in databases. As a data analyst, you've got to go in, get this data, analyze it, and come up with some kind of business insight. For example, if the marketing team wants to know who they should be promoting their new Star Wars merch to, you're the person that they will go to. And you've got to query this data from a database. You'll be doing this using a language called SQL, or Structured Query Language. So in the Star Wars merch example, imagine that the database is made up of different tables. So you have a table called customers that comprises customer details. And then you have a table called products that has information about all of the Star Wars merch. And then you have a table called sales that has transaction details. As a data analyst, you can query data from each of these tables to answer some sort of business question. For example, if you just wanted to view all of the customers in the database, you would write a query like select star from customers. Sounds simple enough, right? SQL is actually not that hard. It sounds similar to plain English and it's pretty intuitive. In fact, if you know Excel, if you can do things like adding 2 cells or creating a pivot table to group some data, then you can pick up SQL pretty easily. Now that you know what SQL is, how do you learn the language? Okay, so there are like a million courses out there that will teach you SQL. And if I'm being really honest, it doesn't matter that much which one you take as long as you learn the core concepts. And I'll be going through these core concepts in this video. There are some concepts that you should know that are specific to data analytics. So feel free to pause this video at any point to take notes. You can also use this video as a checklist to see how many concepts you already know and how many of them you're yet to learn. Now, the first thing you need to do is set up an SQL environment. This is the database system where you will be writing and running all of your SQL queries. There are thousands of YouTube videos out there that will teach you to do this. Now, when it comes to setting up your database system, you have a few options to choose from. You have things like MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite. I don't want you to worry too much about these database systems because you're a beginner and most of the commands across these systems are fairly similar. So I just want you to go to my description, click on the link titled Setting Up Your Database Management System, and follow along to the entire tutorial. You should be set up in about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so once you're all set up with your SQL environment, you can go ahead and start learning SQL syntax. This is the code or the command that you will be writing to extract data from databases. For example, if I gave you a table that looks like this, and I asked you to count the distinct number of customers from this table, you would write an SQL query like this. Now, if I say I only want to see customers who are female, then you'd add a where clause to this query, and it will look something like this. Again, very similar to plain English, and the syntax is intuitive, it's easy to learn. Now, in database management, you have this concept called CRUD. Create, read, update, and delete. Create is to create a new database or table. Read is to read from a database or table. Update is to make some kind of change. And delete is to remove records from the database. As a data analyst, over 90% of your work will be focused on the R, or the read operation. You will simply be reading from databases and gaining some kind of business insight from it. So the example that I gave you earlier, where we counted the number of unique users from the database, that was a read operation. We were not creating, updating, or deleting anything. We were simply reading and extracting information that was already there. Now, what SQL concepts do you need to know to become a data analyst? I've broken this down into 3 sections: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. It should take you about 2 days to get to the beginner level, another 5 days or so to get to the intermediate level, and another week to get to the advanced level. So let's break this down. First, let's go through the beginner level SQL queries. These are the very basics. They include commands like select, where, from, the different data types, order by, and limit. Again, these are the very basics of SQL. It should take you just about 1 to 2 days to learn them. Super intuitive and very similar to plain English. The second level or the intermediate level of SQL queries include group by, having, joins, subqueries, and case statements. Let's say you wanted to use the output of one SQL query as the input to another query. That's what a subquery is. And if this sounds complicated now, don't worry. Once you start learning about it and implementing it, you'll realize that it's actually intuitive and easy. Secondly, you have case statements. Case when in SQL is very similar to if-else in Python. Or if you've written if statements in Excel, case statements are very similar to those. These are conditional statements. And then you have joins. Joins are when you want to combine 2 or more tables together to achieve some kind of end result. Again, if all of this sounds complicated right now, don't worry. Once you start using them in practice, you'll find them a lot easier. So all of these concepts should take you about 4 to 5 days to learn. And finally, we have the advanced concepts, which include common table expressions, pivot tables, window functions, and performance optimization to improve the performance of your queries. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that it will take you like 1 week to learn all of these concepts. But when I say 1 week, I mean 1 week to understand the syntax and learn how these concepts work, not actually implementing them. Putting these concepts into practice is an entirely different story, and we'll be going through that later in this video. Okay, so we've gone through the different steps you need to take to learn SQL. First, set up your environment and then learn the beginner, intermediate, and advanced level syntax. This entire process should take you around 2 weeks. This might be faster if you already know how to code or if you know some advanced Excel. It might just take you like 1 week. But if you're not technical at all, you've never worked with the data before, and you've never seen a spreadsheet in your life, then it might take you slightly longer, like 1 month. But for simplicity, let's keep it at 2 weeks on average, if you spend around 2 to 3 hours learning each day. Now, you might be asking, okay, I have this entire list of concepts to learn, but where do I learn them? There are 2 free resources that I found very helpful in learning SQL. The first is a tutorial by Luke Barus. This is a 4-hour-long YouTube tutorial that will teach you everything you need to know from beginner to advanced. What I really like about this tutorial is that it is specific to SQL for data analysis. So there are specific exercises and problem sets to the field of analytics. The second resource that I found very helpful is MySQL for Beginners by Programming with Mosh. This is a 3-hour-long YouTube tutorial that will teach you everything you need to know about SQL. If your only goal is to become a data analyst, then I recommend taking the first 2 hours of this video, because everything after the 2-hour, 18-minute mark, in my opinion, is not as relevant to data analysts. W3 Schools is another great resource to learn SQL, and this is especially helpful if there are some queries that you're not too familiar with. So if there's a query on the checklist that hasn't been taught in one of your courses, or you don't completely understand it, like left joins, for example, you can go and search for it on W3 Schools. You'll see this entire explanation with a diagram and examples of how it works. And you'll also get to practice this query and run it yourself within the W3 Schools website. So this is something that I found really helpful, especially when it comes to specific queries that I want to practice or that I need more help on. Again, I have linked all of these resources in my description. They're completely free, so do check them out if you're interested. Finally, your 2 weeks are over, you've completed a bunch of SQL courses, you've learned to set up SQL, you've even learned some of the more advanced queries like window functions and subqueries. You're now confident in your newfound skills and you decide to start applying to jobs. Now, I want you to imagine this. After applying to a bunch of companies, one of them finally selects you. You go through 2 interview stages and then you're asked to appear for the 3rd round. This is a timed technical test. It's an SQL test. Suddenly, everything you've learned just goes out the window. You panic. The problem is just too big, too complicated. You don't even know where to start. 10 minutes pass. You start with an approach that you think might work. And then another 10 minutes pass. Suddenly, you're struggling with your query. Your query keeps throwing some kind of weird error. You look back at the question and suddenly you realize that there was an edge case that you missed. There was an entire part to the question that you had completely overlooked. You decide that you have to start all over again. You start writing your new query. You barely have anything written on the screen and your test auto-submits. You're filled with dread. You've just failed the technical round of the interview. This exact situation has happened to me before, and it happened with a company that I really wanted to work with for a position that I was otherwise perfectly qualified for. Here's how to make sure this never happens to you. Step 1 is to practice writing SQL queries yourself. Now, there's a world of difference between consuming tutorials versus practicing queries that solve an actual business problem. So here's what I want you to do. Sign up to 2 sites, LeetCode and HackerRank. These are 2 websites that have challenge questions for almost every programming language. When you're faced with a technical SQL interview, I can guarantee you that the questions you'll be given are going to be very similar to the ones on these sites. So I want you to start with the questions labeled easy. This will include simple select statements, group by, joins, and then proceed to the questions labeled medium and hard. Do at least 50 to 60 questions on these sites, and you'll get used to how these questions are structured. And once you get used to this structure, you'll be able to solve almost any interview question. Because again, most SQL interviews either take their questions directly from these sites or create problems that are very, very similar. Step 2 is to time yourself. Now, some of the questions on these sites are difficult. I used to spend like 2 to 3 hours figuring out the solution to a single question on these sites. Unfortunately, you simply don't have that kind of time when it comes to interviews. So, once you've done about 50 questions, once you're fairly confident in your ability to write decent SQL queries, I want you to start timing yourself. Give yourself about 20 minutes for the questions labeled medium or intermediate. and give yourself about 30 to 40 minutes for the questions labeled hard. The thing is, there's a pattern to most of the questions on these sites, and once you start solving them, you'll see what I mean. But after you start solving some of these problems, you'll get faster and better at them until at one point when you're at that SQL interview, you will be unfazed by anything that they throw at you. And that's where you want to get to. I think it will take about 2 to 3 weeks of practice for you to get to that level with about 3 to 4 hours of learning each day. And I know that this sounds like a lot, but I promise you, it's worth it. Here's an SQL question I found on LeetCode. If you know some SQL, or if you've taken an SQL course in the past, I want you to pause this video and try to solve this problem yourself. See how long it takes you. If you were unable to solve the problem, or if it took you too much time, don't worry, this is a difficult question. Go back, do the HackerRank and LeetCode practice, do all the time tests, and then come back to this one. Step 3 is to use ChatGPT, or Gemini, or Claude, or any generative AI model, really. I found Gen AI to be really helpful when learning new skills, especially technical skills. So let's say you're on LeetCode and you're stuck in a problem. You can copy and paste your solution into ChatGPT and ask it to give you some hints as to how to proceed. Don't have it give you the entire answer, but just some hints to push you in the right direction. You can also ask ChatGPT to give you a sample database and practice questions based on that database. This is especially useful if you've run out of questions on HackerRank and LeetCode. And one more thing that I found really helpful was going to ChatGPT when I struggled with a specific concept. And for me, this was self-joins. I really struggled to understand self-joins. The whole concept was so unintuitive to me, like joining a table to itself. Just why would someone want to do that? So I went to ChatGPT. I got it to explain the concept to me multiple times. I got it to give me questions on self-joins, practice questions ranging from easy to medium to hard. And eventually I managed to better understand the concept. Before we end this video, I am going to give you homework. And I do this to keep you accountable so that you end up actually learning SQL and getting that job instead of simply saying that you're going to do it. And for this video, to make your life easy, I only have one homework task, and that is develop a daily habit of learning SQL. We'll call this the 30-day SQL challenge. So for 30 days, every single day, I want you to spend 2 hours learning SQL. And if you can't do 2, then at least do 1. The important thing here is to turn this into a daily habit. I call this the everyday rule. When you do something every single day without fail, your brain literally creates new neural pathways. So every time you open your laptop and write an SQL query, it becomes so much easier to do so. So when you get that first job or go for that interview, it's not going to feel intimidating or difficult because you've been working on this every single day for an entire month. Now, some days you're going to be really busy, and that's okay. Just don't break the habit. Spend at least 15 minutes, open your laptop, write 1 or 2 lines of SQL code. Just show up. And to really hold yourself accountable, I recommend sharing your progress. Because otherwise, you and I both know that you're probably going to end up doing this for like 5 days, and then life's going to get in the way and you're going to slip up. So here's what you do. Open LinkedIn and announce to everyone that you're starting the 30-day SQL challenge. Every single day, after you're done with your 1 to 2 hours of learning, post about something new that you learned. This can be in a course that you've taken, something that you're practicing, or a project that you're working on. This way, even if you miss a single day out of that 30 days, everyone in your network is gonna know. And even if they don't say anything, you're gonna feel it. It will literally be documented in your LinkedIn feed that you skipped out on your commitment, that you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And that is going to hold you accountable. If you like, you can always tag me in one of your posts and I can be your accountability partner. Okay, that is all for this video. I hope that it helped in some way in your data analytics journey. Let me know if this helped at all in your SQL learning process. And listen, I know that the job market is tough right now, but you're tougher and you've got this. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for staying all the way until the end. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.